Good morning. We're very happy to be able to host a webinar for you this morning. My name is Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center, and I have Olivia Hook with the ODOT Office of Transit, and she is going to do a presentation for you this morning on social media for mobility managers. So, Olivia, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Victoria. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This presentation is on social media, how you can use social media with your nonprofit organization to communicate social services to the community and use that to promote or educate the public and share information. If you look at the chart of social media over the past 5-10 years, you can see there has been a substantial growth, still continuously growing with Facebook use, Instagram. The fact of the matter is that it doesn't look like these social media platforms are going away. Actually, they're getting stronger, and we're seeing a lot more users as far as the different demographics, even into the elderly demographic group is using social media quite a bit. So if you look into the Pew Research Center, you're going to find a lot of research statistics as you're looking into what social media platforms to consider. I recommend that you go into some Pew Research Center to see exactly which platforms are the strongest for you to utilize. Some statistics that recently came up was that social media has peaked and usage is essentially unchanged over the last 4 years. Pretty much what we have right now is what we're getting as far as usage. So that means social media is definitely being utilized by the public, and that's just another tool to reach out and share information. Facebook's popularity in 2019 grew just slightly greater than it was in 2013. It's the only social media network that's growing among young Americans is Instagram. And when you look at Americans aged 65 or older, they are using networking sites like Twitter or Facebook. So there's a lot of reports and a lot of statistics around the demographics and the individuals that, if in your program that you're trying to connect with. So looking at these things, it's pretty fair to say that if you are on Facebook to communicate with demographics in the for seniors, that is definitely a good way to go. When we think of social media, a lot of times we think of the younger generation, and those times are changing. We have a big market for millennials. However, the Generation X and baby boomers, that demographic has been growing for social media use every year. So, on social media, senior citizens are the fastest growing demographic. The factors that are the reasons behind why those seniors are on Facebook and on social media is to reconnect with people from their past. They're also there to make connections with other individuals, also to seek out information and support groups about chronic diseases and information on the health issues that they face. They also do that to bridge the generation gap and foster connections with their family and friends. When you're looking to develop your social media program, understanding all of these demographics is important. One other thing to consider is that when you're having a social media page and you're communicating and publishing information out there, there are a lot of key benefits to having social media when it comes to when you're working in government or nonprofit or public sector, serving the public. There's a lot of benefits here. You can save money. Traditional public outreach is expensive. Advertising, marketing ads, that stuff is extremely expensive, and basically, right now, social media is fairly cheap. Crisis communication, you could take the benefit with having social media would be to promote evacuation protocols and help hundreds of individuals impacted to get to where they need to go safely. So connecting with your local EMA to share that information that gets broadcasted. That way you can be on the front center of any kind of crisis to make sure that you're continuing that communication with the residents in those counties that you serve. You can connect with evacuated civilians in an emergency relief resource. And you could provide up-to-date information to evacuated residents. So that's all of the benefits that go under the crisis communication. Also, there is another benefit, which is citizen engagement. This is where you can keep the public engaged. You'll be able to keep them informed about policy and issues that matter the most to them. When you're considering how you're going to start a social media program, one thing to seriously give it a lot of thought is to define your role as an agency or as a individual. If you're a mobility manager, how are you going to define your role as you're presenting everything on social media? Because there's two different types of social media accounts out there. There are soapboxes and then there are dinner parties. A soapbox social media account is when you focus 100% on yourself, and they're talking about the broadcasting messages and information without engaging with the audience. A dinner party, on the other hand, invites an audiences in and creates a dialogue with them. They encourage the discussion and engagement between you and your host. So at the end of the day, you want it to be a dinner party. This is a message board in a sense where you're putting out information, but you're also opening up the opportunity to gather information. Ask questions to your community, ask questions to those followers who are on your Facebook page. See exactly what their feedback is and just gather information from them. Sometimes they're going to be asking questions if you post something that's interesting and they need to ask some more questions about that. Interacting with those individuals is very critical in presenting the dinner party kind of concept with your role. When it comes to messaging and developing how what you're going to be sharing, there's a balance. You've got all of these different things that you could be sharing. It could be information, it could be something about a new event, or it could be something that you need to have the individual who's reading to take action immediately. So there's different things you could be promoting and sharing and all of this stuff, and there's a balance, though, that you should be looking to get as you're developing your social media program and how you're setting up your messaging. So here's a good pro tip that I found online, which is 33% should be promoting your services, the services that are available, and then 33% should be sharing ideas from thoughtful leaders, people in the industry, like-minded organizations. Share information from what other county mobility managers are doing, or maybe there's coordination going on all over Ohio. You can bring all of that news to your local area just to share what's going on and spark ideas where it could be possibly brought to your area. 33% should be shared, be based on conversing with others and building your brand with engaging other people. That also involves with other social services who are very similar to what you do. So for example, if Job and Family Services has a post out there that relates to your program, you're partnering with the conversation, so you can share that on your page because that's part of what your messaging is, and you're sharing something that was part of what another brand put out there. So it's not 100% organically what you can produce. It's a mixture of what you produce, what's already there, and what you can share from other resources. The different types of content types. So there's a whole collection around this. As you're developing content, you can create your own. You can develop polls and contests. You can design helpful posts about services that are available. You could talk about upcoming meetings. If there's a public meeting, especially, and information you want to gather from the public, you can share information about if you have a blog on your web page or podcast. anything organic, that's always good to share. Then there's other information you could be sharing from other resources. Google Alerts, you can follow a lot of things about transit issues in Ohio that you want to share. All of those major topics, you can pull that from Google Alerts and share that content. Another thing is you could follow associations and agencies and nonprofits and then share the content that is related to your program on your page that they're already sharing so you don't have to recreate the wheel. And then also monitor social media mentions. That is something that you can do through a series of, there's a lot of apps out there that you can, and Google Alerts is one of them, is whenever you see a social media mention, you can have it pull up where you can tag it. So some things that you can follow would be hashtag mobility management or hashtag transit in Ohio or something of that sort of thing. Those kind of things is where you can hashtag and find out exactly where the social media mentions are. Another thing diving into the content is there is a lot more that you could still be sharing when it comes to content. You could be sharing activities, class registration. If there's travel training offered at the Senior Center, share information about that. If there is a car fit event from AAA for seniors that will help seniors understand how they can set up their vehicle for their best safety protocol. That would be something that would be very good to share on your social media. Public service announcements, town halls, council meetings, construction updates, road closings, route changes, if it has to do with your local transit. This could be a wealth of information that you're sharing on your social media. And another thing you could do as you're trying to gather content and think about what you're trying to communicate, one thing to do is embrace your holidays. Because holidays are such a great space filler if you're trying to make sure you have constant content going off your social media all the time. Embracing your holidays, matching them up with what you do. It could be so creative and very engaging for the audience. So remember, when you're scheduling with if you're looking at seasonal, definitely highlight the holiday schedules if transit's changing. Or, for example, right around this time of year, it's Valentine's Day. Ohio does a big push for the campaign for marketing called Ohio Loves Transit. And I wish I had a picture on here for you guys. But so Ohio Loves Transit. Grab that message and share that information along with any other promotions that are going on. And that is just more messaging that you can use for your local program, your social media program. Now, I'm talking a lot about things that you do post, and one thing I do want to talk about is what not to post. It's hard to remember when you're doing social media that this is one thing you're doing for work. It is not for personal gain. So one thing to remind yourself is that do not put any personal opinions about anything on your social media for your organization. So anything about politics, if you have a comment about the local news, just don't put any personal comment. I would just share the news and anything positive with it, nothing scrutinizing. Sports, don't be sharing your personal opinion on the sports teams or religion. That does not belong on this page. Information that is not based on facts, information that's based on opinion, do not post that stuff. Just highly recommend that you don't. And public rants or complaints. If you're having a lot of challenging customers, I would not recommend getting on your social media and publishing a rant. That is highly unprofessional, and I just want you to keep that in mind as you're looking at your social media profile. As I mentioned earlier about sharing other content, I have a lot of ideas here that you can partner up to share and follow so that you can team up with your neighborhood and make sure the messaging is universal. There's your local EMS, your county commissioners, your local animal shelter, dog warden, board of elections, National Center for Mobility Management, Parks and Recreation, the auditor, local news, local city council. All of these ideas would be great for you to follow in your local programs, and if there's anything that's related to what you're trying to do for your organization or your program, definitely share that with your content. There are a lot of helpful tools out there to assist in building your social media campaign and collecting useful content that you can constantly share. One of those helpful tools would be called Pocket. So, and it's mobile and on desktop. So basically, whenever you find something that you want to review later or save it in your virtual pocket, you can save articles, videos, stories from any publication app or page onto this, and you can access it later and program it into your social media campaign. Another helpful tool, it might sound pretty basic, but it is very helpful, is to bookmark. Bookmark the Facebook pages that you like to follow, those other partners who share constant information that you would like to share on your page. If you just bookmark their pages, you can easily go through their pages within a few minutes every day and see exactly what is new and share anything that they have. And another helpful tool is to help generate content would be there's also Giphy, which is they can create GIFs, these video clips that play on repeat all the time. I have I encourage to invite some fun to your page with the understanding that it's professional, but especially when you have holidays or something like that. If it's National Cake Day, for example, you can see the National Cake Day. That's really fun, and it makes your page a lot more interesting. And I have some examples from around the state of Ohio of social media posts that were really great examples. So as you're gathering information about what you want to put in your campaign, I have a few examples for you to add to your collection of things that you're gathering that are really great ideas to add to your social media profile. So for example, here's Logan County Mobility Management, Tam Blakely. This post is really good because it puts a personal face to the program. It makes it a real program, and it isn't so artificial that this is a service that's available for the community. You can actually see the person who's providing that service, and you actually have a lot of it buys in some more trust from the reader because you can see this person's been doing it for a long time. She seems like a friendly person, and they are taking the opportunity to share this with the public. That just shows a lot of credibility behind the organization. So this is a really great post because of those reasons. Another example from the Union County Health Department is they shared information about a survey that is going around to make sure that everyone has access to that information and can contribute and participate. Another example would be Knox area. So Knox County Mobility Management shared information from the Ohio State Highway Patrol. And information like that, that's good to be sharing. Also, they shared information about a road closure. Jackson-Vinton Community Mobility Management, they shared information about driving and individuals who have dementia. This is an informative and educational article that she shared for the demographic that we serve. It's a very good example. Here's another example of an event that is going on in the community, and the mobility manager shared that with everyone so that those individuals will know that there is a dinner available for the community, and if they need transportation services, also connect with the mobility manager to find out how you can get to Lexington for that free Thanksgiving dinner. Pike County Mobility Management shared information about winter driving. This is something that came from the Ohio Department of Transportation, and it's just a checklist to help out with safety awareness, and this was a great share on Pike County's behalf. Great Lakes Community Action Partnership shared information about the rides, exactly what information as far as what times they stop, how much the ride cost. Information about local transportation providers. That is really great information to be sharing on your mobility management social media page. Tuscarawas County Transit shared information about Halloween. They had a trick-or-treat event These events are really good for the community to know about. So sharing events like this is very valuable. So Tuscarawas County Transit shared this for the Zanesville, Ohio area, even though Tuscarawas County is a couple counties over. Individuals do travel all over the place, and it's really good to be sharing this information. And another example would be from HHWP up in the Hardin Hancock area. And one thing I just want to point out about this is that it just shows a positive image that the individuals that are providing these services have fun, and they seem like they have a good personality about them, and just sharing some of the fun things that the organization does beyond just providing services, that we have, that there's just more to it than just doing paperwork. So sharing just some of these personal things on your social media is so good for your followers. Some other helpful tools, because there are a lot of helpful tools, but some things, and definitely when you're watching your budget, I look for the things that cost nearly nothing. So one thing I recommend is Hootsuite. Hootsuite has a free platform. What you can do is you can schedule up to 30 messages for free, and you can schedule those in advance up to 2 weeks. And I think it's up to either one or two social media platforms, so you can pick Twitter and Facebook or something like that. That free platform changes from time to time. There is a paid version which is more robust, and you can schedule way more posts. But if you want to develop a baseline of messaging so that you can spend most of your time interacting and developing more content, Hootsuite's the way to go to have a constant communication with your followers. Buffer is another one very similar to Hootsuite. And Tweetdeck is one, it's primarily for Twitter, because Hootsuite and Buffer tend to not necessarily, they do comply and they do fit into the Twitter world, but there's something about that 140 character cutoff that makes it really complicated with Hootsuite. So Tweetdeck is a little more functionable when it comes to Twitter, but these are just helpful tools. You feel free to use whatever works for you. Visual media. So if you would like to create something that's more visual and graphic, you don't have to be a graphic designer. There are tools out there that do it for you. One free tool out there is called Canva, and another one is called Infogram, and then there's Pablo. One thing I wanted to mention is that there are other programs that are, a lot of these are connected to each other. So for example, Trello, which is very similar to that Pocket program I mentioned earlier. Trello is more of a project management sort of software, but you could save links and information and plan around your social media calendar using Trello. But one thing I wanted to mention is Trello and Hootsuite are connected. So you can actually program your tweets in Hootsuite from your tweets or your social media post from Trello, because it converts over to Hootsuite. So I would recommend looking into that. Buffer and Pocket and Pablo are also integrated. So as you're looking for these tools, look to see what you currently use and what integrates with each other. So that way you can have all of the supports around everything you're trying to do. Another thing to think about when you're managing your social media campaign is, what are the best times of day to be posting? If you're scheduling your post every single day, do you do that first thing in the morning at 8 a.m. or are you scheduling those for 9 o'clock or at noon? What is the best time? And the best thing to do, I would recommend for everyone, is to research that. I research this from time to time, about once a year, just to understand if my information that I've done in the past with research is still consistent. Typically, the best time of day to be posting is between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Typically, users check their Facebook pages on their lunch breaks or sometimes in the middle of the day after breakfast. So those are the best times to be posting. So that is one thing to also be thinking about as you're scheduling, to be more strategic about when you post so that you make sure you reach the most individuals. A few key points that I pulled out from the major social media platforms. One is Facebook. So the best time of day is on Wednesday at noon or 2 o'clock. Thursday is a very popular day as well, but every day of the week typically is very good for Facebook. Whenever you look at Instagram, there's a different time and demographic that is typically just during business hours. And then for Twitter, it has a little more. The research I was able to do was a little more prescriptive. They had more suggestions about the time frames. So this information is here for your knowledge. One thing I do want to mention is that engagement levels tend to drop around the weekend significantly. So if you are working on your social media campaign and you have a lot of focus on the weekend, that's fine if you want to program it into Hootsuite. I just don't see that. I would not recommend spending a lot of time or having a lot of heartburn over what your engagement is over the weekend, because typically it's during the week. One thing that you also will see as you develop a social media page is there are analytics. If you go on to Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, there is a page dashboard of analytics. These are really good after a period of time because you can go back and see exactly what posts are very popular. Which ones are get the most likes? Is it the educational post, or is it the event post, or is it the road closures and things like that? Understanding exactly what your audience is engaging in so that you can know exactly what you need to produce more of and less of. You don't need to spend time in focusing on generating things that people really don't seem to engage with. So these are really good for as time goes by to check your analytics from time to time just to see exactly what you're doing and how everyone is engaging with that. Another thing I do want to mention, because these statistics do look pretty large, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you're starting social media, you're going to feel like you're talking to a brick wall because you're not going to hear anything at first. You're going to have very few followers and likes. But as time goes by, you're developing your reputation as a social media expert and your presence online. As you develop that reputation and that presence, the audience will grow. So be patient and don't get discouraged. Be consistent. But that is one thing I want to mention because when you get started, that is very, very discouraging. While we're talking about your audience, one thing I do recommend for you is don't wait for them to come to you or find you. Invite them or invite them to follow your page. So you can send invites to email contacts, so you can email all of your current customers. Share your page on your timeline. Be sure to make sure your posts are set to public to ensure that everyone is able to see the post. There's also Facebook's promote feature, which is how you can reach more locals. And you could drill down those advertisements to reach out to certain demographics in certain areas. So if you're trying to reach a certain demographic and you would like to purchase the ads, those are a great option to showcase one of your posts and reach a new audience. And it's fairly inexpensive. I think you can do advertising posts for like $5 or $10 with Facebook. Also, there are groups out there that you can engage with depending on your program. I encourage you to look out for groups that are built around what you're trying to do for your program. But one thing, this is part of the engagement that I mentioned earlier, is it's not necessarily 100% all about you and your page. It could be how you engage with the groups out there. So, for example, if you see a group that is centered around something that is very similar to your program, you can join in and engage and join the conversation and offer any advice or suggestions, or maybe you have a recommendation that they didn't know about. So going into there and looking at these groups can be valuable. One example would be there's a Columbus, Ohio rideshare group. Now, this is for anyone who would like to carpool together. And one thing, though, is that if this is for Ohio mobility managers, if as a mobility manager you wanted to follow this and offer any advice or any recommendations with the knowledge that you have as a mobility manager in that county, that could be so valuable for the public as they're having these conversations where you can join in and help out. So that's just one case example. Another one with these groups is there's a Facebook group that's called Columbus, Ohio, and the around towns of Central Ohio, and they're sharing information about, how to get around, or if there are jobs, things like that. So as they're sharing information about that, if there are new transit routes right now in Central Ohio, they're wanting to put a connector in the Rickenbacker area for employment transportation, that information would be valuable to share with the community. That's already established out here, that you don't have to develop the group for it. It's already there. You just participate. Here's another group that universities, you'll see this a lot with universities. So if you get on Ohio University in Athens, I'm pretty sure they have one as well. But this is the Ohio State University Rideshare Group. These are students who are looking to carpool to go see family and things like that. So as mobility managers can get in here, and if they see anything that, if they can give a tidbit or any information or any recommendations and things like that. Also invite others to attend the local coordinated planning meetings or to participate in the surveys and focus groups. That way we can gather information from those individuals. So there was a lot of information in this presentation. We're going to wrap this up to one plan. So if you're going to start your a social media plan, the first thing you need to do is you need to create a plan. So you get an idea of what your posting frequency is going to be. Are you going to be posting one time a day? So that means you need to have 5 posts for the work week. And then that times 4 is 20 posts. You need to have 20 posts for the entire month if you was going to schedule that out. And that's just for 1 per day. What if you wanted to have 2 per day? Then you multiply that by 2. So you're going to, once you decide what your frequency is, that content, the need for content is going to build really quickly. So that is critical when you're creating your plan. Also consider the holidays and sharing content from the pages that you follow. Also with your content strategy, I summarized a lot of the things that we talked about, that I mentioned earlier. But sharing your content, which is like helpful information, anything that might be positive or funny, holidays, events, things that are going on in the community, that's information that would be helpful, local services that are available. You can share videos about what it's like. For example, if you want to ride public transit, and then just do a video of yourself to show what it is like and what a day in the life of somebody taking public transit is like. That's an idea to share because people want to learn and see what it's like. Show a video about what it's like to schedule a ride or file a complaint. The possibilities are endless. You can do that. Videos are very, very popular when it comes to social media. Photos. Take photos of your area, everything that's going on in the community, and sharing information on your page about the your local photos. And then think about your interaction strategy. So as you're developing how many times a day you're going to be posting, what you're going to be posting, think about also how you're going to be interacting. So are you going to be checking with your different Facebook groups about once a day, twice a day? What about those other pages that you follow and you bookmarked? You're going to check those once a day, maybe twice a day in the afternoon after they post their daily post so you can share it. Think about how you're going to be doing that. And then how are you going to be checking to reply to any comments and messages that you get on your social media platform? You might get messages from anyone who wants to interact. What is your plan on responding to that? Is it within 24 hours or 48? Think about how you're going to manage your social media plan and then go from there. And then stick with it. Don't drop the ball. That is one thing I definitely want to emphasize, is that even when you feel like you're not talking to an audience yet, even if you're getting started, what you do, it does matter. So consistency is key. If you get on a social media page that hasn't been updated in 6 months, it doesn't seem like that company or organization has anything together, or they obviously don't manage their time well if they can't keep their social media up to date. So if you have that impression on others, remember that when you're creating that impression on your page. So consistency, and post what matters and engage your audience. what if your agency doesn't allow social media? There isn't a whole lot of recommendations around. I mean, there are some rules around social media, but um, everything with nonprofits and everything are still trying to figure out where the boundaries are. So what I recommend to you is if you are with an agency, absolutely go to your supervisor and get permission. But I recommend that you create a plan about what you want to do, the benefits, what it's going to take, the challenges, and the safe holds you have put into place to make sure that you are protecting the reputation of the organization and the program that you serve. So I think if you present that in a way that is very well thought out, then there can be a serious conversation with your supervisor about starting a social media program. So there's a few other recommendations I have here for that. If your agency does not want to have a separate um, social media page for your program, whether it's mobility management or whatever your program may be, you can also see if you can be under the agency umbrella for if there is a social media or marketing department, how you can contribute information so that they can be sharing it about your program on the agency page. So there's other ideas that you don't have to generate in everything from scratch or even run the page yourself. See how you can utilize what you have right now with your organization. And that is all I have for you today on social media. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and good luck with your social media campaign.
Olivia, thank you so much for this presentation. In full disclosure, this is the second time Olivia's actually done this for us because the first time the technology didn't work right to record it. So she graciously agreed to do it again so we could get a recording to be able to post and share. And we thank you so much for that. And I learned even more this time through than I did the first time. So we definitely look forward to employing a lot of the tips that you've provided us in this presentation. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
All right, I'm going to go
All
ahead
right.
and end the webinar now. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.